Hi everybody, I just wanted to do a short video reviewing over-under cable wrapping technique. For the most part we're doing this really well, but I feel like some people haven't got the hang of this, so I just want to review it. And this applies to all the mic cables, all the instrument cables, all the power cables. Every cable we have should be wrapped like this. If you just straight coil a cable, if I just make a loop and then keep making loops in the same way, whether that's around your elbow, which is especially hard on cable over time, please don't do that. But even just doing it loose in your hand like this, what ends up happening is you make a twist in the cable with every loop that you make. And then when that cable gets pulled out across a stage, it'll start to kink and pigtail around itself because you're not really letting all those twists come out, because no one, when you actually use a cable, you're not untwisting one loop for every time you're straightening out the cable. So it ends up getting twisted as you coil it and not untwisted as you uncoil it. So that's where the problem lies. And then that gets made permanent over time because the black jacketing of the cable will start to twist independently of the wires that are running up the middle. So then you end up with a cable with a full memory to it, that it's just going to stay coiled and kinked up and twist around itself more and more and more and more. So to avoid that, this over-under cable technique, and if you don't like the way I'm doing it, you can just YouTube search for over-under cable wrapping. There's different ways that get to the same result, but this is how I do it. The male end of an XLR in my hand facing me and the cable tie ready to be tied is how I do it. So I just keep that separated so I can tie the cable quickly. And what I do is an over wrap is the normal, the straight coiling wrap that you normally do already. So the way I think of it is starting the car and then turning off the car. Starting the car, so just flick my wrist and then I have a coil. The second one is the more challenging one. I think of it as turning off the car and I'm making a loop that tucks under. So the loop is going over my hand. So I'm starting the car and I'm turning off the car, and I'm starting the car and I'm turning off the car. And what you end up doing is canceling out your twists. So if I do this right, I can take these two connectors at the end, throw out the cable, and it will sit totally flat because all the twists in the cable are undoing each other. That's noticeable in cables as short as like 10 feet, but when you've got like a 50 footer or a 100 footer, that really starts to add up. In audio world, with big, thick, long cables, we even do what I'm showing now, but instead of in your hands, you do it on the ground. You twist over and you pull a loop through to do under. And there's like 300-foot audio snakes that you over-under loop as you're coiling it into the box so that the loops cancel each other out. So I'm just going to demo that one more time. I make a normal over loop and then I twist under to make up for that. Over, under, over, under, over, under. And the cable should sit really nicely. You won't have any twisting of the loops wanting to bunch up. So here's a pitfall of this method is once I've tied this cable off, if this end goes through the loop and you start uncoiling it from this end, you will get a knot in the cable for every loop that you've gone through. So in a 100-footer cable, that can be like, I don't know, like 15 knots in the cable. So it's really important when you're coiling a cable this way to make sure that you're tying the cable off really tightly and that you're keeping both connectors really close to that tie. So what I do is a square knot or a reef knot, left over right, right over left with the cable tie. I find this is really easy to grab and uncoil, and it saves tons of time because I can see which side has which connector, and then I can drop the coil on the ground the way I need to be able to just pull the cable flat on the stage. My habit for my own cables is if it's a type of cable that has mateable ends like this, is to actually mate those ends. And I find that if I have a trunk full of cables that are coiled like this, it's always really clear to me which side has the male connector on it, and the other side I can start pulling freely from either side. And it just makes it way easier to set up the stage the next time if all your cables are ready to go. And then you don't have cables uncoiling each other as well, because they're kind of self-contained like this. It's easier to count your cables when you have mated connectors like this. I can just grab 10 mic cables really easily off of a hook or out of a case. So this is my preference, but what's really important is that your connectors are near each other, whether it's like this for an instrument cable or a mic cable, but really close with a tight cable tie that's close. If you leave a whole bunch of tail on it like this, it's really easy for the loop to go through, and then if you're not paying attention, it's hard to decipher how to take it apart without getting knots everywhere. But that's what I'd like us to be doing for cables, is over-under cable wrapping. So review this video, ask me any questions you have, and all the best.